I gave away $350 million. In today's money, that is hundreds of billions. I built 2,800 libraries. I funded universities. I established research institutions. I created foundations that still operate today, more than a century after my death. And I never went broke, not even close. I lived comfortably until I died. I never worried about money. I never felt poor. I never regretted a single dollar I gave away. People ask me how. How do you give away 90% of your fortune and not end up desperate? How do you write checks for millions and still have security? How do you fund thousands of projects and not lose everything? The answer is not what most people expect, because most people think about giving the wrong way. They think giving means losing, that generosity means sacrifice, that helping others means hurting yourself. And if you think about it that way, you will never give, or you will give small amounts grudgingly, or you will give until you feel the pain and then stop, or you will go broke because you gave without strategy. I'm going to tell you the secret to giving without going broke, the actual method, the specific strategy, the way to be genuinely generous without destroying your own security. This is not about being selfish. This is not about giving the minimum. This is not about pretending to be generous while protecting your wealth. This is about understanding how wealth actually works so you can give more, not less. So you can help more people, not fewer. So you can create more impact, not less. Let me start with a mistake most people make. They think wealth is a pile, a fixed amount, a number in an account, and they think giving means taking from the pile, making the pile smaller, reducing what you have. If you think this way, giving feels dangerous. Every dollar you give is a dollar you no longer have. Every check you write reduces your security. Every act of generosity makes you poorer, so you hold back. You protect the pile. You give only what feels safe, only what does not threaten your security. This is poverty thinking, and it keeps people poor even when they have money, because they are so afraid of the pile getting smaller that they never let it grow. Here's the first secret to giving without going broke. Wealth is not a pile. Wealth is a flow. Money coming in, money going out. The question is not how big is the pile. The question is how strong is the flow. When I sold Carnegie Steel for $480 million, I did not think I have $480 million to spend. I thought I have capital that generates returns. I have assets that produce income. I have investments that create cash flow. I have a system that continues generating wealth. The pile was large, but more importantly, the flow was strong. Even without working, even without building new businesses, my capital was generating millions in returns every year. Interest, dividends, investment gains. The money was making money without me doing anything. This is the foundational understanding you need before you can give without going broke. You do not give from the pile. You give from the flow. You do not spend capital. You deploy income. You do not reduce assets. You distribute returns. Let me make this concrete. When I decided to build libraries, I did not think I have $480 million and libraries will cost $50 million, so I will have $430 million left. That is pile thinking. That is how you go broke. I thought my capital generates $20 million a year in returns. I can live comfortably on $2 million. That leaves $18 million to deploy. If libraries cost $100,000 each, I can build 180 libraries per year, and I can do this every year, forever, because the flow continues. This is flow thinking. This is how you give without going broke. You protect the capital, you live on part of the income, you give away the rest. And you can do this indefinitely because you are not consuming the source of the flow. Most people who want to give think they have to give from what they have. They look at their savings and think, if I give $10,000, I will have 10,000 less. So they give less than they want to give, or they do not give at all, or they give and regret it, or they give until they feel broke and stop. But if you build wealth that generates flow, you can give from the flow and never touch the wealth. You can be generous every year. You can fund projects continuously. You can help consistently. And your wealth never decreases. In fact, if you manage it well, your wealth continues growing even as you give from the flow it generates. This is the secret most people do not understand. You cannot give meaningfully until you build wealth that produces flow. You have to build the capital first. You have to create the system that generates returns. You have to reach the point where your money makes more money than you spend, and then you can give generously from the excess without ever going broke. But there is a second secret, and this one is harder to accept. You have to give strategically, not emotionally. Most giving is emotional. You see someone in need and you feel bad, so you give. You hear a sad story and you feel compassion, so you donate. You are asked by someone you know and you feel obligated, so you write a check. You see suffering and you feel guilty, so you help. This emotional giving feels good in the moment, but it is not strategic. It does not solve problems. It does not create lasting change. It does not multiply impact. It just provides temporary relief. And then the need appears again, and you give again and again, and you never actually solve anything. You just keep giving emotionally without creating real change. This is how people go broke giving, not because they give too much, but because they give ineffectively. They give to everything that asks. They respond to every emotional appeal. They try to help everyone they encounter, and they drain themselves without creating lasting impact. Strategic giving is different. Strategic giving asks, so what will create the most lasting value? What will solve root problems instead of treating symptoms? What will multiply impact instead of just transferring resources? What will continue creating value after I stop giving? What will help people help themselves instead of making them dependent? When I decided to build libraries, it was not because libraries felt good. It was because libraries were strategic. One library serves thousands of people for generations. It provides access to knowledge that people can use to improve their lives. It does not create dependency. It creates capability. It does not just help people. It helps people help themselves. This is strategic giving. This is how you create impact without going broke, because strategic giving multiplies value. $1 given strategically creates $10 of impact. $100 given strategically creates thousands of dollars of value. 1 million given strategically changes entire communities permanently. Most people do not want to hear this. They want giving to be about feelings, about compassion, about responding to need, and those things matter. But if you give only emotionally, you will either go broke or give so little that your impact is negligible. If you want to give meaningfully without going broke, you have to give strategically. You have to think about impact. You have to measure outcomes. You have to ask hard questions about what actually works. You have to be willing to say no to emotional appeals that do not create lasting value. You have to prioritize effectiveness over feelings. This sounds cold, but does not. It is actually more compassionate, because strategic giving helps more people, creates more change, solves more problems, has more impact than emotional giving ever could. I gave away $350 million strategically, and that money built thousands of institutions that served millions of people for generations. If I'd given $350 million emotionally, responding to every request and every need and every appeal, it would have disappeared quickly with minimal lasting impact. Strategic giving is not less generous, it is more generous, because it creates more value with the same resources. It helps more people with the same money. It solves more problems with the same capital. It multiplies impact instead of just transferring wealth. Here is the third secret to giving without going broke. Give systematically, not sporadically. Most people who give randomly, when they feel like it, when they have extra, when they are asked, when they feel guilty, when something touches them, sporadically, inconsistently, without pattern or plan. This sporadic giving is unpredictable. You do not know how much you will give. You do not know when you will give. You do not know to whom you will give. So you cannot plan. You cannot budget. You cannot measure. You cannot optimize. You just react to circumstances and hope it works out. This is how people go broke giving. Not because they give too much, but because they give without system. They have no plan, no budget, no limits, no strategy. So they give impulsively. And impulse giving is dangerous, because impulse does not consider sustainability. Impulse does not protect capital. Impulse does not preserve flow. Impulse just responds and hopes. Systematic giving is different. Systematic giving means deciding in advance how much you will give, when you will give, to what you will give, creating a plan, setting a budget, establishing limits, building a system that continues whether you feel like it or not. I decided early that I would give away 90% of my fortune before I died. That was the goal, the commitment, the plan. And then I created a system to execute that plan. I allocated specific amounts each year. I identified priority areas. I established criteria for what I would fund. I measured outcomes. I adjusted based on results. I treated giving like a business, with goals and systems and measurement and optimization. This systematic approach let me give enormous amounts without ever going broke, because I knew exactly how much I was given. I knew the giving was sustainable. I knew the capital was protected. I knew the flow would continue. I knew I could maintain this level of giving indefinitely, because it was systematic, planned, budgeted, sustainable. Most people cannot give generously because they give sporadically. They do not know if they can afford to give. They do not know if today's giving will hurt tomorrow's security. They do not know when to stop, so they hold back. They give less than they could. They protect themselves because they have no system to tell them what is safe. If you want to give without going broke, you need a system. Decide how much of your flow you will give. Decide what you will fund. Decide how you will measure impact. Decide when you will give. Create a plan that protects your capital while deploying your returns. Build a system that makes giving automatic rather than dependent on feelings or impulses or requests. Systematic giving is sustainable giving, and sustainable giving is generous giving, because you can give more when you know it is sustainable than you can when you're guessing whether each gift will hurt you. Here is the fourth secret: give to capability, not comfort. Most giving is about comfort, helping people feel better, providing relief, reducing suffering, meeting immediate needs, making people comfortable. These are good things. Suffering is real. Needs are urgent. Comfort matters. But giving to comfort does not change circumstances. It provides temporary relief but does not solve permanent problems. It helps people survive today but does not help them thrive tomorrow. It makes people dependent on continued giving instead of capable of creating value themselves. If you give it only to comfort, you will go broke because comfort needs are endless. They never stop. They do not solve themselves. They require continued giving forever. One person comfortable creates no change. 100 people comfortable creates no change. 1,000 people comfortable creates no change. It is more people needing continued comfort. Giving to capability is different. Giving to capability means helping people develop skills, acquire knowledge, build systems, create value, become independent, help themselves, help others, multiply impact. This is why I built libraries instead of giving money to poor people. Libraries build capability. They give people access to knowledge. Knowledge builds skills. Skills create value. Value generates income. Income creates independence. Independence creates strength. Strength creates more capability. Capability multiplies. One library builds capability in thousands of people. Those people create value. That value improves their lives. Their improved lives improve their communities. Their improved communities create more opportunity. More opportunity creates more capability. More capability creates more value. The impact compounds forever. This is how you give without going broke. You give to capability. You invest in multiplication. You fund systems that create independent value. You build institutions that continue producing capability long after you stop funding them. Most people do not understand this distinction. They think helping means meeting needs, providing relief, making people comfortable, and then they wonder why their giving never seems to be enough, why the needs never stop, why the same people keep needing the same help, why nothing ever changed despite the generosity. The answer is they are given to comfort instead of capability. They are providing relief instead of building systems. They are creating dependency instead of independence. They are meeting needs instead of solving problems. If you want to give without going broke, give to capability. Fund education. Build institutions. Create systems. Develop skills. Provide tools. Teach methods. Build independence. Create multiplication. And watch your impact grow far beyond what you could achieve by just providing comfort. Here is the fifth secret. Protect your capital while deploying your returns. This sounds obvious, but most people who go broke giving violate this principle. They start giving from capital instead of returns. They consume the sauce instead of harvesting the fruit. They spend the goose instead of collecting the eggs. This happens gradually. You give from returns at first, but then you see a need that is bigger than your returns can cover, so you give from capital just this once, just for this special circumstance, just because this need is so urgent, just because this opportunity is so rare. And then another special circumstance appears, and another urgent need, and another rare opportunity, and gradually you are giving from capital regularly. You are consuming your wealth instead of just distributing its returns. You are killing the goose to get eggs faster, and eventually you go broke. Not because you gave too much, but because you gave from the wrong source. You gave from capital instead of returns. You consumed instead of harvested. You spent the source instead of the fruit. I never gave from capital, ever. Not once. Not even for the most compelling need. Not even for the most urgent appeal. Not even for the most promising opportunity. I only gave from returns, from flow, from income, from the fruit, never from the source. This discipline kept me from going broke, despite giving away 90% of my fortune, because I was not giving away 90% of my capital. I was giving away 90% of my returns. Big difference, enormous difference. The difference between sustainability and destruction. Most people cannot maintain this discipline. They see needs that exceed their returns and they feel compelled to give more, to dip into capital, to consume the source. And they tell themselves it is just this once, just this special case, just this urgent need. But once you start giving from capital, it is hard to stop. Because needs never stop, urgency never ends. Special cases keep appearing, and gradually you consume your capital, and your returns shrink, and your giving becomes unsustainable, and you either stop giving or you go broke. If you want to give without going broke, you must protect your capital religiously, fanatically. Without exception, you give generously from returns as much as you want from returns, all of your returns if you choose, but never from capital, never from the source, never from the goose, only from the eggs. This discipline requires saying no to urgent needs, to compelling appeals, to opportunities that exceed your returns. You have to say, I cannot give more than my returns allow. I cannot consume capital. I cannot kill the goose. I cannot destroy the source of sustainable giving. This feels hard. It feels mean. It feels like you are not giving enough. But it is actually the most generous thing you can do, because protecting capital means protecting the ability to give forever. Consuming capital means giving more today but nothing tomorrow. Protecting capital means sustainable generosity. Consuming capital means temporary generosity followed by nothing. I gave away $350 million because I protected the capital that generated the returns I gave away. If I had given from capital, I might have given 400 million in the short term, but then nothing forever. By protecting capital, I gave less in any single year, but I gave substantially for 18 years. And the institutions I funded continue creating value. A century later, protect your capital, give from returns. This is how you give without going broke. This is how you sustain generosity. This is how you create lasting impact. This is how you help more people over time instead of fewer people right now. Here's the sixth secret. Give publicly enough to inspire, privately enough to protect. Most people think you have to choose. Either give publicly and risk being seen as showing off, or give privately and get no credit. Either broadcast your generosity or hide it completely. But there is a middle path. And this middle path is important both for sustaining your ability to give and for inspiring others to give. I gave publicly. I put my name on libraries. I announced major gifts. I wrote essays about wealth and responsibility. I made my giving visible. This was not about ego. It was about influence, about inspiring others, about changing how wealthy people thought about their obligations, about creating social pressure to give. If I had given privately, my giving would have helped the people who received it, but would not have influenced other wealthy people to give. It would not have created the expectation that the wealthy should be philanthropists. It would not have started the tradition of systematic giving that continues today. Public giving has power beyond the money. It creates examples. It establishes norms. It changes expectations. It inspires others. It multiplies impact beyond your own gifts. Because when wealthy people see other wealthy people giving, they feel pressure to give too. And that pressure creates more giving, more impact, more change. But I also gave privately. Many of my gifts were quiet. Many institutions I funded did not carry my name. Many people I helped never knew I helped them, because some giving is strategic, some needs are sensitive, some help is more effective when it is invisible. The balance matters. Give publicly enough that your giving influences others, that your generosity creates pressure for others to be generous, that your example changes norms. But give privately enough that you protect yourself from becoming a target, that you maintain humility, that you help people without creating dependency on your personal involvement. Most people who give publicly go too far. They broadcast every gift. They seek recognition for every donation. They make their giving about themselves. This attracts attention you do not want. It creates expectations you cannot meet. It makes people see you as a source of money rather than a person. It turns giving into performance instead of impact. Most people who give privately go too far too. They hide everything. They refuse recognition completely. They give anonymously, always. This protects them but limits their influence. It helps the people they give to, but does not inspire others. It creates impact through their money, but not through their example. The middle path is strategic. Give publicly enough to inspire. Give privately enough to protect. Use your giving to change norms while protecting yourself from becoming a target. Create influence through example while maintaining boundaries. Be visible enough to matter while being private enough to be safe. This balance lets you give without going broke. Because if you are only public, you attract so many requests that you cannot manage them. You become overwhelmed. You feel pressured. You give to shut people up instead of giving strategically, and you either go broke or stop giving to protect yourself. If you are only private, you miss the opportunity to multiply impact through influence. You help people with your money, but you do not change how other wealthy people think. You create value through your gifts, but you do not create the social pressure that generates more gifts from others. The middle path creates maximum impact. Your money helps directly, your example helps indirectly, your gifts create value, your influence creates more gifts, your generosity helps people, your visibility inspires more generosity. The impact multiplies beyond what you alone can give. This is how you give without going broke. You give strategically, you give systematically, you give to capability, you protect capital, you give publicly enough to inspire, you give privately enough to protect, and you create sustainable generosity that continues as long as you live and influences others to give long after you die. I gave away $350 million using these principles. I never went broke. I never worried about money. I never regretted a gift. I never felt poor. I lived comfortably until I died, and the institutions I funded continue creating value today, more than a century after my death. This is possible for you, not at the scale I achieved, because most people will not accumulate $480 million, but at whatever scale you can achieve. You can give generously without going broke. You can help people without hurting yourself. You can be genuinely generous while maintaining security. You can create lasting impact while protecting your ability to continue giving. But you have to understand how wealth works. You have to think in terms of flow instead of pile. You have to give strategically instead of emotionally. You have to give systematically instead of sporadically. You have to give to capability instead of comfort. You have to protect capital while deploying returns. You have to balance public and private giving. These are not tricks. These are not shortcuts. These are not ways to pretend to be generous while being selfish. These are principles that let you be more generous, not less. That let you help more people, not fewer. That let you create more impact, not less. That let you give sustainably instead of giving until you break. Most people who want to give hold back because they are afraid of going broke, afraid of giving too much, afraid of losing security, afraid of being taken advantage of, afraid of running out, afraid of hurting themselves. These fears are not irrational. These fears are based on seeing people give and regret it, give and go broke, give and feel used, give and lose security, give and have to stop, give without creating real impact. But these failures happen because people give without understanding these principles. They give from pile instead of flow. They give emotionally instead of strategically. They give sporadically instead of systematically. They give to comfort instead of capability. They give from capital instead of returns. They give too publicly or too privately instead of balancing visibility and protection. If you give with these principles, you will not go broke. You will not regret it. You will not feel used. You will not lose security. You will not have to stop. You will create real impact. You will help people sustainably. You will be genuinely generous. You will change lives. You will build institutions. You will create lasting value. And you will never worry about money because you will give from abundance instead of scarcity, from flow instead of pile, from sustainability instead of sacrifice. This is the secret to giving without going broke. Not giving less, but giving smarter. Not being selfish, but being strategic. Not protecting yourself at the expense of others, but protecting yourself so you can help others continuously instead of temporarily. I built thousands of libraries. I funded universities. I established research institutions. I created foundations. I gave away 90% of my fortune, and I never went broke. Not because I was lucky, not because I was rich, but because I understood these principles. Because I gave from flow, not pale. Because I gave strategically, not emotionally. Because I gave systematically, not sporadically. Because I gave to capability, not comfort. Because I protected capital while deploying returns. Because I balanced public and private giving. You can do this too, at your scale, with your resources, from your flow. You can be generous without being foolish. You can help without hurting yourself. You can give without going broke. You can create lasting impact while maintaining security. You can be part of the solution without becoming part of the problem. The secret is not holding back. The secret is giving smart. The secret is understanding wealth so you can deploy it effectively. The secret is building systems that let you give sustainably. The secret is thinking strategically so you can be generous continuously. The secret is protecting the source so you can harvest the fruit forever. That is the secret to giving without going broke. Now you know it. What you do with it is up to you. But you cannot say no one told you. You cannot say you did not know how. You cannot say it is impossible because I did it and I told you how. And now you can do it too.